Hi, my name is Heather. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to show you how to draw and blend and do textures with chalk markers. For your supplies, you'll need a chalkboard. This one's mine. And some chalk markers. I have different colors here and a couple different brands. So I have the Casa chalk markers and Bistro. The Bistro you can find at like any craft store or Walmart, and then the Casa ones I got online. So these are just some of them, and these ones are the thicker tips, and then I also have the thin tip. I have white with the thin tip. Another thing that you'll need is a traditional piece of chalk, and this is just for sketching your drawing first. Then that way you can wipe it off easily if you mess up. If you need to erase what's on there already and so that you can put something new, then you can use like some wipes or just like a wet paper towel. And then if it's really hard to get it off, then you can use a magic eraser. That's what I have to use for this chalkboard because it doesn't come off very well. It kind of depends on the chalkboard. This is a chalkboard that I make for my Aunt Rosie every week for her dinner that she makes on Sundays for her family. I put the menu here, and then I like to do a little image of something that's on the menu, and then sometimes I put a little quote along the bottom. So today I'm going to do the angel food cake with strawberries. I have these reference images. I'm going to do the slice probably more like this one, but then she puts pink icing on hers, so this part will be pink. And then I want to do some of the strawberries. I'm going to start by sketching with the traditional chalk. So I'm just going to very lightly sketch out the shapes here. Move that up a little more so we have some more room. And then the strawberries, so we're going to have some little strawberries here, little pieces. The first thing is I want to lay down my base colors. I do like to do some layering with my chalk markers. For the middle part of the cake, it's just going to be white. We are going to have a little bit of texture on it. When you look at the cake, see how you can see the texture? There's little light and dark parts of it. So for something like this, I like to just do short little brush strokes. However, this is only going to be the first layer because as you'll see, the chalk kind of dries back a little bit lighter and it's a little bit see-through. So this is really just my first layer. One tip for when you're drawing with the chalk marker is that sometimes it's a little weird, but the chalk might not come out very well out of like one side of it. And then if you just rotate it like a little bit, then sometimes you'll find like a better part of the marker. So you'll see like as I'm drawing with the chalk marker, I'll rotate the brush sometimes if the chalk stops coming out. And then of course you can always, shake it. And I usually have an extra piece of paper on hand so that I can just push down on the tip, or also if other colors get on the marker too from blending. You'll see later that that can happen. Alright, now I'm going to let this dry, and then I will go over it later with another coat. And one thing that you want to remember when you're layering the chalk marker is that it really needs to be very dry when you go over it for the second coat, because if it's wet, then you'll be blending. If it's kind of dry, then you're just going to pick up the chalk that's almost dry and it's not going to blend and it's just going to kind of ruin it. So it needs to be completely dry for us to do the next coat. So now I'm going to move on to the icing here. For this, I want it to be like a pastel kind of a pink. So I have this pink here and I have white. One thing with chalk markers is that there's not a ton of colors available, so you kind of have to mix your own colors a lot of the times. So this is how I would do this. So I start with one of the colors and just fill it in, and you have to do it kind of fast because you don't want it to dry before you can blend. So I just color in that part, and then I'm going to take my white and I'm going to color right on top of it. And then you'll see when you color right on top of it, that's going to blend. And one thing you kind of just have to accept with chalk markers is that you will see your strokes. I want to call them brush strokes, but I guess they're really pen strokes. So you will actually see the strokes, but that's just the nature of chalk markers. But one thing you can do is pay attention to what your strokes are doing if you're going straight up and down or side to side or diagonal, and make it so that the strokes make sense. There's that part, and then I'm just going to do a little line of the icing up along the top here. So I did the pink, and then I'm just going right over it with the white. And then you kind of just have to get a feel for it, but you'll definitely notice that like sometimes when you say like go over the pink with the white, sometimes it'll just kind of scrape it up, and then you can see the black of the chalkboard underneath. But then you just kind of like rotate the marker a different way and just kind of go very lightly. Try some different kinds of strokes, like smaller strokes or longer strokes, and you'll kind of get a feel for it, the way that you can do it without kind of picking up the chalk and leaving the chalkboard underneath. I might add a little bit of red to that icing too. So I'm going to do little like spots here, because she puts little like pieces of strawberry in with the frosting when she does it. And then I'm going to take my white marker, and then see, it's kind of picking it up now and leaving some of the chalkboard underneath. So when it's like this, you can just kind of dab it. Especially since I'm just doing these little spots anyways. But it's less likely to pick up the stuff underneath if you use a part of the pen where the ink is actually coming out a lot. So you notice when it started picking up the paint, then I rotated the pen a little bit so that some of the white is coming out, and then that's going to blend with the red, and it's also going to just sit on top and not scrape the stuff underneath. It definitely takes practice, that's for sure. That's why I'm really glad that my aunt wanted me to do this every week, because it gives me so much practice. Alright, so now the strawberries. The strawberries are kind of like shiny looking, and so we will definitely do some highlights on them, but let's just do the base color right now. I'm just going to let that dry, and then we could do the other coat. And then while that's drying, I will work on the plate. I'm going to do the plate blue, and the plate is going to be pretty much just one color. I will do a little bit of a highlight on it, so I'll show you how I do that, which I like to do while it's still wet, and then it kind of blends in nicely. So I'm just going to go around the red. And then to get this kind of a little bit smoother, I can use the flat edge of this, because I was using just the little chisel tip. So instead I can use like the wide flat part, and that does get it smoother. And if you want it to be smooth, like for this plate, then you want to do long strokes instead of the short little strokes. But you can't be too picky about the strokes because, like I said, it's just the nature of the way that it works, and the more you mess with it, then the more you'll probably be unhappy with it. So at some point you just have to say, okay, it's good enough. And since you're probably doing this on like a chalk menu or something, people aren't really going to look too close up anyways. So like if you look at this one, I have some short strokes right here, but really once it's all done, it's more about the picture as a whole and not about these little details, so I'm not really too concerned about it. This part is pretty dry. I'm going to grab my white again and I'm going to go back over it. And then for this I want to do some more of that texture, so I did my little like tiny strokes, and I'm going to do some little dabs now. And then some parts will look light and some parts will look dark. The next thing is I want to do another layer on the cake, and this pink is just a little too bright, I think. So I would like to use some red. And see, I'm going to go very lightly, just kind of dab on, because remember we do have a layer underneath. And when you have a layer underneath, you can't really do a long stroke. You can maybe if you go like really lightly, but it's risky. So when you're doing a layer on top, it'll be better if you do dabs. So now I'm going to take my white and very lightly, like I'm barely even touching the chalkboard right now, I'm just going to do some very small strokes so that it kind of mixes in with the red. Alright, and then now I'm just going to add a little more red up here. And then I will blend that in with some white. Alright, there we go. So now I'm going to do a little bit more on the strawberries. So for the strawberries, I want the red to be darker, because see how you can really see the strokes on here, and you can really see the chalkboard underneath as well. I'm going to put some red for a strawberry, and then I'm going to use the white just because I don't want to have like a flat strawberry here, so I'm going to do like the top half and kind of blend it in with the white so that we have some shading here. And then another thing you can do for the blending, and also to fix some mistakes, is a paintbrush. This is a number 5 round paintbrush, and you can take your paintbrush and you can kind of just blend your colors together. Like say you already have enough chalk on here and you don't want to add more chalk with the white, and you know, to keep blending it. You just want to use what's already there, you can use the brush. It is very tricky because, as you can see, you can pick up some of the paint and then it might leave some of the chalkboard underneath. But it can also be really good for textures. See how like you can make a nice texture here? You just have to kind of use it and see how you like it. the other thing is to fix mistakes. You can use this brush, just get it wet and dry it, and then just make sure it's not too wet. So see, I'm like wiping it on my hands, and then I could go around this edge because it's not really perfectly straight here. So basically you can pick up paint that you messed up. So it's really nice. I use that technique for acrylic paints too. But the cool thing about the chalk paint is that you can always do it, whereas with acrylic paints, if it's been dry for too long, then it won't work. Back to this, I'm going to color this with my red very lightly because I don't want to pick up the paint underneath. And then I'm going to do some white here. And then see how I have to keep turning my pen because it wasn't coming out at that spot. Let's go ahead and do the second coat on the plate. I'm going to take my blue and then I'm just going to go very lightly, and you can kind of feel when you're doing it, you can kind of feel if it starts to pick up the paint. So just ever so lightly. And then I'm going to add my highlight on while it's still wet. I'm going to add a highlight right here. Now you can really see the chalkboard underneath with this one, so you can try going the other way with the chalk. So I was going left to right, and then now I just go right to left. See, it's kind of like just trial and error. Like you just have to try different things, different positions for your pen, different ways to do the strokes. I'm going to add some more blue because this part's dry. And then I can do more of my highlight. And then I'm just going to fill in between the strawberries. I think I do want to add some more white to the cake part, but I'm going to use a bigger white pen because I feel like some of these spots are just a little too small, and so I would kind of want to use a bigger one so I can kind of even that out. Here's my big white pen. I'm going to do some of these little dots. And then we can also try doing a little bit of texture with our brush. So I'm just doing small little strokes. Now that the strawberries are completely dry, I can do some more highlights on them. So I'm just going to take my small white pen and then I'll just do little dots, just dabbing it on. Just to make it a little more interesting, I'm going to add some little hearts around the cake. Now I'm going to add a little quote on the bottom. I'm going to write "Baked with Love." First I'm going to start with the chalk, just like before, so that I can sketch it out. Now that I have that all sketched out, I'll go over it with my chalk marker. I'm going to use my fine tip one, which I have in white. So first I'm just going to go right over what I wrote. And then I'm going to do a little bit of brush lettering where it kind of looks like you used a paintbrush to do the lettering. So anywhere where you would have a downstroke, then you just go over it and make it a little bit wider or thicker. Once your chalk marker is dry, you can wipe away any of the traditional chalk that's left over. And then that's it. That's the menu. I hope you liked this video, and I hope it helped you learn some things about drawing with chalk. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And also if you have any suggestions for me. I basically just kind of learned this as I went. This is just kind of what I've learned. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you want to see more videos. Thanks for watching.